It is really exciting that, you know, two brands, and hopefully us too, Ed, committed to nature, to great design, can come together, I guess, and actually you from a colour perspective and me and Seedlip from a flavour perspective find a home in such a humble symbol like a circle and a wheel.
But it's actually a fantastic form, isn't it? Because it's the circle of life. And what I love about working with a company like yours is that you start with a living thing. Because so much of life now is based on starting with dead things like crude oil. And the circle of life is all. And getting under your skin has been really interesting because I had no idea how thorough you were about selecting a really quite small amount of ingredients, like me, you know, channeling it down to 12 pigments, but also that you had real historic resonance. So going back to the 17th, 16th century, to see that even then there was a lively and really quite progressive interest in distillation, and already quite a circle of ingredients being used at that point, and distillation being used not just to make drinks but to make medicines and remedies. And that's really fascinating, and health ought to underpin everything we make these days, in our opinion. And anything you buy should not be detrimental either to your health or frankly to human health or the wider health of every living being on the planet.
I did look up, because I know when we spoke and you were telling me about the history of colour wheels, and so I was like, I wonder what the history of flavour wheels are, because I can't imagine they're that old actually. And it's the 1970s, and it was, you know, flavour wheels brought to life really for beer at that time. But because we, as you say, we do work with a small selection of ingredients, therefore we take, I guess, our focus on those ingredients incredibly seriously. I love the past, probably more than the future sometimes. I'm convinced that all great ideas have already happened, and actually, certainly with Seedlip, it was a case of going back to the past and uncovering that herbalists were distilling medicine, you know, back in the 17th century, and B, when my family started farming, also in the 17th century, that kind of fusion of ingredients and farming and flavour and distillation just sort of came together as being, hold a minute, my story is actually over 300 years old in that sense, but actually creating a distilled non-alcoholic spirit is something that's very modern for a modern day need. And so I do love that relationship between the past informing the present and using that to progress the future.
I quite agree with you, because I think that although we talk about tradition, the important part of that word in a way is addition, because there is no such thing as one tradition that was just set in aspic, was there? And my most useful pigment even today was first used by man 40,000 years ago.
Amazing.
You know, so Paleolithic cave painters were decorating with the same pigments. And actually, the recipe, the basis of the recipe hasn't really changed. You needed the pigment, you needed something to bind it with, in their case probably boiled up bones, and you needed something to make it wet enough to actually get it onto the wall. I mean, now water, probably then water to some extent. And there we are, you know, why reinvent the wheel? But what I think is really important about the historical way of making paint is that today it's more relevant than the modern way. Because it's a way that's regenerative. And unless we start moving not just from where we are into sustainability, but beyond sustainability into regeneration, we are simply not going to be able to replenish resources sufficient for another generation. Ben, somebody in your team had this harebrained idea and said to me, could you come up with a label idea that captured a collaboration between your natural paint company and your natural drink company. And I thought, yeah, but Seedlip's labels are about the best there are out there on any bottle on the shelves. And then I talked to you and I found it very reassuring that we both came from the same place, that if you believe in grammar, so your kind of 3 key spices, my 3 primary colours, then actually the vocabulary that stems from that is an individual thing. It's a matter of thought and design and preference. The Seedlip labels are wonderful because they proclaim a confidence and a love and a desirability in the actual ingredients that are used in the bottle.
Yes.
You know, without which I wouldn't know what it was made from. And we feel very strongly that the ingredients we use in our paint are to be celebrated. We want to tell people about them. And actually, if you work from a grammar to a vocabulary, you unpick the mysticism of it for people really usefully. And you can actually convey a few kind of guiding principles, which is really useful. And just as you have worked out how to mix the secondary colours and the tertiary colours, if you like, and then how to complement opposite flavours, exactly the same thing goes on with our colours.
Yeah,
so
and that's,
the colour wheel picks that up, exactly.
I think that's the link is when you started, you know, when we originally started talking and you started talking about the colour wheel and colour opposites and how you build paint and the ingredients that you use to achieve a result, which is a colour, I'd kind of never sort of appreciated or even probably even thought about the similarities for, you know, paint and liquids that you drink being actually so similar when you are just talking about really great ingredients that you put together and process to achieve a really great result, be that colour, be that flavour.
I love things to have meaning, and I get that Grove has come out of the use of barks, and that's amazing. You know, you don't think about that to make a drink, but nor probably do you think about spirits like turpentine or citrus peel oil or resins from pine trees to make paint, but that's how they used to do it. And so it lent itself really nicely to this idea, this sort of 18th century idea of groves, which were very much part of the outer garden around a house, and how that could divide also into a colour wheel. And I think the numbers you use, I hadn't realised, also have historical resonance. I think, is this 1542?
This is
First use of the word colour.
Yes.
I learnt something about colour terminology.
Yeah, this was the House of Orange in the Netherlands, then actually using the word orange not only to describe the fruit, but also to describe the colour, because it was called red before that. And obviously many shades within orange and red. So yeah, the kind of the historical references, I think, building meaning, depth and substance behind those, whilst not everybody cares about that and they're not shoved in people's faces. It just, to me, is part of putting the care and the attention and quality into something, that it's got a reason, it's got meaning, and it's got a story behind it.
Well, and there's a symmetry too, because actually, you know, here is the colour wheel, and these genuinely are your ingredients, from grapefruit to lemon to green cardamom to oak to allspice. And there it is, because the allspice goes from purple to red, doesn't it? And the citrus fruits go from red to orange to yellow. It's a kind of, seems a really natural fit. If I'm
I mean, I think we've come up with a great thing here. I started reading a bit by a guy called David Hyatt, probably, I'm going over 10 years ago now. He set up a little jeans company in Wales. And he said that his company was an ideas company that made jeans. And I absolutely loved that sentiment, that I sort of stole it and was really clear that Seedlip was a nature company that made drinks, and that actually nature was the whole kind of the reason for the drinks, the reason for having great ingredients, what I absolutely loved and cared about. And doing that has been, I think it's been really helpful for us as a business. It's been helpful for how we make our products and using really great real ingredients that we care about. It's been really helpful in, we started selling Seedlip in garden centres, we've won 2 golds at Chelsea Flower Show. It's helped govern who we've hired, how we've built the company, the kinds of restaurants that we're served in. It's just been an incredibly useful, sort of compass, I guess, for how we operate. That also happens to be something that is incredibly precious and endangered and not in the greatest health. And so it gives us this double aspect of nature being something that we love, think is magical, amazing, wonderful, source of great inspiration and ideas, and provides us these really amazing ingredients, but also something that we should all be caring about and we should all be doing our bit and our best for.
I think like you learn from the wisdom of others, don't you? And I remember first encountering James Lovelock and talking about Gaia and the whole principle of the interrelated circles, again, circles and cycles, that formed an incredibly complex but necessarily interrelated system that protected the planet, protected the various skins of the planet and the atmosphere shrouding it. And just thinking, everything should be dust to dust, ashes to ashes, if you like. You should not create something that ultimately can't manifest back into something natural. And we talk about biodegradable or compostable or what have you. I suppose that's what we're meaning. But we kind of invented waste, didn't we, sort of 100, 150 years ago, about the time we found oil. And the problem is that oil is none of those things. It is a layer that was deposited that should have stayed there. And we've brought it all back and created this enormous carbon burden to create a system that is now undoing our ability to kind of survive as a race. And so your ideas with genes, I think, is great. I would say genuinely that we're on a mission. So we're paint with a mission. And our mission is to be kind of out-competed, if you like, in the end, because everybody wants to make paint like we do. And some will get cleverer at it or fancier at it, but instead of using plastic polymers, crude oil derivatives, they'll be using annual crops that give us all the same carbon feedstocks. You just have to be a little bit cleverer and have some principles, really.
Yeah, and I guess we'd echo that exact sort of energy around the mission with everybody should get access to a great non-alcoholic drink that is not full of sugar, full of fruit juice, or treats you like a child. And
which is the majority.
Which is the majority.
Like plastic is the majority paint.
Right.
It's the normal.
Yes.
But why?
And so do we need to be the biggest? No. Do we need to conquer the world? No, we don't. We just need to open the door and shine the light. It's nice now, Ed, that it's summer, and we can actually be outside a bit more. And I think it's pretty, I think it's pretty cool that we've created this bundle that, is, okay, it's limited in number, but people can actually get outside, get a paintbrush, have a nice drink, and just kind of take in nature that's around them. And whether that's their garden or that's a park or that's a wood, a river, wherever, I think if we've learned anything over the last 15 months, it's been just how incredibly important our local surroundings are to us when it's all we've got.
Of course, I know. And actually, if you're going to paint something, it's really good to have some purpose, some idea, a little bit of help, So I like the way that in our little bundle we've got 10 or so colours, which will give you the full colour wheel, the full circle, and you can mix them all up, of course. And we put a little brown in there called Mummy, which is quite like raw umber, which underpins all colours in my kind of lexicon. And I think that there are two things that really make me kind of paint and draw. And one is actually the human figure, and the other is landscape and everything that goes on in landscape. And what I would really urge everybody to think is make this as bad as you possibly can, because then you won't fail. And actually you're more likely to produce something worthwhile.
Surprising, yes.
And whenever I've had any kind of lessons, they've been undoing all the sort of more formal lessons I had at school. So don't draw what you see, just see, maybe not even look at your canvas, you know, and just see and then you get line, and you'd be amazed actually how often that line, that perhaps inexpert application of paint produces something that's enjoyable. It doesn't have to be a likeness, because you go away from what you're seeing and you have it somewhere else, and it will do all sorts of things. It'll be evocative, it'll please your eye, it'll make you feel, I spent some time not sitting at my computer.
Exactly, not sitting on Zoom, and it's part of, it's kind of, instead of taking a photo of something, there's a way to visually, hands-on capture a moment.
Oh, nice one. I mean,
and that's
does
lovely.
It get much better? Out of doors, paintbrush, gloss Seedlip.
Yes, easy.
Your amazing packaging, tell me about that, because packaging is such a potential waste.
Yeah, the coolest thing that I've been able to say about Seedlip for probably the last 2 years is that for some of our packaging, and for the packaging for this bundle, we grow it. I just think that is the coolest thing to say, that we grow our packaging. And it grows in a week. And it is using the world's best recycler and learning from nature, mushrooms. So the root system of mushrooms, mycelium, creates this complex web of fibers that actually, when processed in the right way, becomes this incredibly durable, lightweight, hydrophobic, which is just a silly way of saying that it repels water.
But still soft.
But still soft, and has texture and has tactility. And yeah, so the bundle's packaged up in the mycelium boxes. You can break them apart afterwards, throw them on your garden. This will biodegrade without a trace in about 40 days.
Brilliant.
Which is wonderful. Everybody should be using mycelium packaging.
Yeah, to that.
We are a kind of proud member of an organisation called 1% for the Planet, and that is
Started by the guy.
Started from the guy, Yves
Patagonia.
Chouinard, Patagonia founder. So born in the US. Got many thousands of members now, and it's a annual commitment to donate a minimum of 1% of your sales, money.
Sales, not profit.
No, sales, to selected environmental organisations that are chosen by you in sort of consultation with 1% for the Planet. It's a fantastic initiative that, ultimately is able to give customers, consumers, the knowledge that some of their money that they are spending on your products is going to help, in our case, be able to continue to grow great ingredients and provide wonderful wild nature spaces for people to enjoy the drinks and the actual environment. So yeah, 1% for us is the least that we can do.
And I guess it makes you much more conscious about your craft. I remember being very struck by an amazing lady called Cressy, who has a business making belts and bags from redundant fire hose.
Okay.
And by the way, giving I think, a large percentage of profit back to the farmers' charity. So lovely circularity. But she had this amazing charity. She's a challenge. She said, can you say you are creative if what you create involves destruction?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that I think that's really key. And I don't think I could say it yet.
Yeah.
Because, you know, paint is made from extracted resources.
Yes.
But being conscious of it is a really key driver for me, and I think it's a really good challenge.
And it's the first step, right? The awareness and the consideration at every point, at the beginning of a new project, at the beginning of a new idea, at the beginning of changing something or improving something or scaling something, to build in the consideration of the impact, almost so that it becomes normal and routine to do that. That's like a hard lesson that the world is having to learn. That's quite a painful lesson to industries and companies that are big and have done things a certain way and are needing to gradually shift and change. But that's how we're going to then add up to make the biggest change.
Brilliant.